Our second session will be conducted by Mr. Debashis Basu, who is the editor and publisher of Moneylife magazine and also a founder trustee of Moneylife Foundation. He is a chartered accountant by qualification with 29 years of experience as a journalist and has worked with most of India's leading publications such as the Times of India, Business World, Financial Express, Business Today, and has written columns for Business Standard and The Economic Times. May I now invite Mr. Basu?
Very, very interesting first session with lots of stories, etc. There are lots of numbers and some charts, all I hope very simply presented, but even simple numbers can appear to be complex to a lot of people. So please, by all means, ask anything that you find it difficult to quickly grasp, and please remember the person next to you is exactly in the same situation. I'll start with a typical case of somebody who is around, let's say, 45. A very nondescript name, Mr. Kumar. Can be a camel, can be a somebody from the north. He has some amount of savings. It could be 20 lakhs, could be 50 lakhs or whatever. He has probably gone in for a second house. His EMI is continuing. He earns a salary, let's say, of around 60,000 rupees a month. His household expenses are 20,000, EMI is 25, and he saves 15,000 rupees a month. Okay, he's very happy that he's saving a quarter of his salary, which is a good number. The rule of thumb is that if you save a quarter of your salary, it's fairly good, but depends on saving in what. He is, of course, worried about children's education because they're moving into a higher education. If you ask him about retirement savings, he will say, I have no idea, because that's 15 years from now. 15 years later, he's 60 and he's retired, and over the past 15 years he saved in different things. Maybe he started a SIP when the Sensex is 25,000, and then got bored over the next 3 years because it hasn't moved at all, so he's closed the SIP, which is a story of a lot of people, because they tend to follow prices, start the process of investing in equity mutual funds when the market is high. And unfortunately, if you start at the time when the market is high, then future returns are likely to be low. So meanwhile, he would have also been approached by, let's say, an accountant in his office who said, this is very good money back plan of LIC. You will get your money, 25% over every 5 years or some such. He has a lot of money in bank FD, which is a typical story of a lot of people, because it's a default option. It's not that you have to apply your mind for it. You get your salary, pull out money for expenses, rest of the money remains in the bank, remains in the savings account. After a few months or a few years, you suddenly realize there's so much of money in savings account, why not make it an FD? So that's how the money has come into FD, is not part of any conscious planning. But of course, his biggest asset is, any guesses?
House.
Yes. His biggest asset is the house he is living in, which is not a financial asset. There is no earnings from it because he has to live in it, and he can't quickly liquidate it and realize money unless he is really desperate. So he retires at 60, and as Sucheta has mentioned, there are a lot of people tend to live a lot longer thanks to advances in medical sciences, and so he lives for another 25 years, right? Okay, 60 to almost 85. What will his income and expenditure look like? Remember, in the previous slide we mentioned that at 45 his household expenditure is 20,000 rupees. 15 years later that figure would go up, because one of the undeniable things of life apart from taxes is inflation. As I said, there will be some charts and numbers. So, sorry. Okay. What was 20,000 rupees 15 years later, by a process of 9% inflation, it's all very simplified. It can be 50, it can be more, it can be less. We are taking an average of 9% inflation on 20,000 rupees. Because at 45, if you remember, we had assumed it's 20,000. When at 60, 15 years later, that is around 72,000 rupees a month. Remember, he has some savings. We had assumed he has 20 lakhs in savings, alright? So that savings plus, remember, he is saving another 15,000 rupees a month. So that initial savings at 45 plus 15,000 rupees per month, maybe around 7% post-tax return, because he's got LIC's money back and bank FD, all that put together is not going to be 9%, 10%, 11%, it's only going to be around 7% post-tax. After 15 years, at the time he retires, it is about 1 crore of rupees. So let's look at the picture. 45 to 60, expenses have gone up from 20,000 to 72,000. His initial corpus plus additional monthly savings is at 1 crore. So at 60, he's got 1 crore corpus and around 72,000 rupees per month as expenses. But it will not be 72,000 rupees a month, because post-retirement expenses are usually lower. So let's assume, instead of 72, let's assume a expense 50,000 rupees a month, 15 years later. Alright, that itself will grow over 25 years, that his lifespan is. If you recall, we have taken 2 phases of life, 45 to 60, 60 to now 85. I am talking of 60 to 85 part. So which is 25 years. From 50 at 9% inflation, per month expenses will be around 4.31 lakh per month. It could be even less. But this is pure arithmetic. There is no opinion in this. Okay? As I said, it could be less. But if this is the assumption, that would be the figure. Now, if you remember, he has about 1 crore of savings at 60. That fetches him around, at 9%, that fetches him around 75,000 rupees of per month of income. He starts at 60 with an expense of 50,000 rupees. He has 25,000 rupees of surplus at the starting point. Okay. Now, unfortunately, the 9% growth of expenses will at a certain point in time mean that his expenses have grown on to almost equal to his interest income at this point. After this point, it would mean he has to draw down from 1 crore. Under these assumptions can be different. You may have a son who suddenly gives you, "Dad, keep this 2 lakh rupees with you." So that goes into 1 crore and the whole situation changes. Or you don't need to spend so much of money, I'll spend part of the money, the whole situation changes. This is about a person and his whole financial situation, and a lot of Indians are very proud, they don't want to take money from their kids. So based on the simple set of numbers, after a few years, maybe around 8 years or so, 8-9 years or so, he will start, the expenses will cross his interest income and he'll start reducing, he'll start taking money out of that 1 crore which is in the bank. Okay. So after that point, there is a rapid increase in expenditure and reduction in capital from 1 crore. Almost after 20 years, the money is over. Now, as I said, in 19 years, it will be over. What has gone wrong? Apart from the fact that at 45, if somebody asked him, what about retirement funds? I have no idea, because that's too far out into the future. People can't think of a financial situation even a year or 2 from now. Before retirement, at no stage do we calculate how much is enough. There are some people who do worry, and they worry and then they ask, and they don't do anything about it. You can do a little bit of number crunching, and you need to do it maybe once in 6 months, that's about it. But most of us don't do it. So how much is enough is a calculation that is crucial to make. It's very easy to make. In fact, we have a website where we have put in some calculators, and you can put in your assumptions, and I'll show that at the end of this presentation. It's free. You can put in your assumptions and numbers and you can do these calculations. 4-5 different kinds of calculations you need to do. One is how much is enough, so that at the point of time you retire, you invest in such a manner that it lasts for 25 years or so. Calculate expenses at the time of retirement. One of the reasons why I painted that bleak picture, which may or may not happen to a lot of people, one of the assumptions over there is that it is 50,000 rupees at the point of time you retire. So if your expenses are 20, how much it will grow to, what are the various things you need at that point in time, that has not been calculated. If that was calculated, maybe he would wake up and start saving more, or save in products which give him higher returns, because he still has 15 years of working life at 45. Number 3, how much would the expenses rise? Most people underestimate this figure. The expenses for urban middle class people is around 9%, sometimes 10%. It's not less. And I have given a very simplistic picture. Expenses could be significant after around 65-70, when medical expenses start rising. It may be, and if you do a simple rough calculation of the price rise in medicines, an ointment that you would have been buying for 65 rupees 2 years ago, it probably cost 90 rupees today. Alright, that's a 40% jump in 3 years. So these pharmaceutical companies are able to extract money from us because we don't look for alternatives, and whatever the doctor prescribes, we quietly go and buy, because we have to trust our doctor. The rise in all healthcare related costs is certainly around 12%, 13%. Some surgeries are costing much more than that. The price rise is higher than that. So some estimate is needed that how much the expenses would rise, and also how much to save. Exactly, it was 15,000 rupees for, in his case, whether it should be 18 or 12 and which products he did not calculate, and having saved 15,000, whether to put it in money back or there are better options, he hadn't calculated. So this is a typical situation of a lot of middle class people. This situation, as I said, let me repeat, is mitigated. This problem is somewhat reduced by the fact that we have other people to fall back upon, namely our kids. And that 1 crore or 20 lakh rupees where it has been put, that expected return of the portfolio, none of these things people normally calculate, with the result that how long the savings would last is an unknown figure. All these can be calculated, and according to me should be calculated very easily. All this is very, very simple. In fact, the more difficult thing to calculate is how long are you going to live, because that is in nobody's hands. The simple things are easy, must be calculated at least, which can be done. And here is a list of things which are completely unknown, and making retirement savings or retirement calculations across the world for anybody really difficult. People try to do rule of thumb, post retirement, where to put the money, because you're already 60, you don't want to take that much of chances. What is the expected return from that investment? How long will the savings last, and how much and when to withdraw from the principal? If you have invested in equity funds, as I would encourage people to do, when exactly to withdraw, and this would vary from individual to individual. What is the post-retirement income or support you are likely to have? I can tell you very confidently, with the kind of pension that my father gets, he would not have been able to manage if were it not for the support that me and my brother gives him. If we have a real life example, and he's really lived a long life, he's past 90, right? Yeah. Now, within this, control what you can. So what you can't control is how long you will live, irregular health expenses, other financial and non-financial support. So these are the things, unknowns, and you can't control. Please bear in mind that this can be positive or negative. It's totally unknown. What you can control is how much you save and invest, post-retirement income out of your savings and investment, regular post-retirement saving as well as tax impact. All of these are possible to calculate. Unfortunately, this is a typical asset situation of an average saver. They have hardly anything in equity mutual funds, if at all. That could be even 1%, the first one. Insurance takes up a lot of money, fixed deposits take up a lot of money. These are all low earning kind of products. And then there's a property which is grown not for anything that you have done, because of real estate laws and the builder lobby, and therefore shortage, and therefore the prices have gone. You've taken advantage of that without thinking. This kind of asset mix is not going to give you income. Okay, so you end up, a lot of people in this generation, younger people who are in their 30s and 40s, will end up possibly what economists call asset rich and cash poor. Right. And of course, when there are a lot of people like that, there could be a supply side solution to this, which is reverse mortgage. Unfortunately, that's not happened in this country. The least you should do is avoid the wrong products. So even between an insurance policy and a bank FD or a tax-free bond, whatever, these are all fixed income kind of products. If you are in a better product which gives you a little higher yield, you must do that. Save as much as possible, save as early as possible. This is something that if you do the numbers starting from any point of time, the impact even over 15 years or even over 20 years is just truly dramatic. If you are able to raise your savings by even 5% or 7% from what it currently is, and you don't have to take chances, even if you were to do the first part, which is a little more savings, the ultimate terminal wealth it produces is enormous. Just to give an example, this is a 27-year-old person and a story of a 37-year-old person. Alright? So at 27, he hears a presentation like this and is very excited. So he goes and starts investing. Income is 5 lakhs per annum, savings is 1 lakh per annum. Okay, 37-year-old, it's 10 years later, the start is, income is 10 lakhs per annum and savings is double. Alright, even then, because this guy has started 10 years early, he's got almost 80% more money. Even though he's saving half. This is the early start, the brilliant advantage of the early start for exactly the same product. I've assumed that whatever these two people have invested in the same product with the same return. Alright, it's quite dramatic. So to catch up with that, he has to save 2.3 lakhs per annum if you start a little late. So you start late and you have to save much more to catch up. At 45, if he has to catch up, he has to save that much more. It makes it a little more difficult. Second, start early, save more as much as possible. That was the first. Second, save in which product? If you do not have, if you don't take away any, I can see somebody taking a picture of this. No, go ahead. I think everybody has to have this. If you don't take any notes for anything else that I say, please take note of this. The reason is that there is no opinion here. This is what the financial products give. This is what the financial products yield. This is not my opinion. And in fact, I have been very conservative. If you invest it, and I assume that you are in a tax bracket at 60,000 rupees per month. If somebody has an income, he is in a tax bracket. If he puts in bank FD, he has to pay almost 30% tax. So if you have invested in a 9% bank FD, you are keeping 70% of that. 70% of 9% is 6.3%. This is the best situation. After this, if the interest rates fall, the banks will start paying you 8% or 7.5%, in which case your earnings are even less. Corporate deposits play a little more. ULIPs, very generous assumption I've made, actual could be even lower. Traditional insurance, which is money back, whole life, all of these kinds of policies will probably yield about 5 to 6%. There's 1 lakh rupees of tax benefit to it. Any other retirement product like pension plans and so on is going to yield about 8 to 10% if they invest substantial amount of money in equity. Public Provident Fund, NPS pension, these are the ones. If any of you are working in the government and if you have joined after 2004, or if you know anybody who is in that situation, part of your money is going into NPS. A few decades from now, the government has decided, depends on what actually happens at that time, the government keeps deciding a lot of things and then changes also. The fact is that you will not, the government, the central government and state, and to some extent state government employees have enjoyed an incredible indexed pension for all these years, and that is going to go. So those who have joined after 2004 are not going to get a pension from the government. Their money it is invested in national pension system. NPS unfortunately is not investing too much of money in equities, only about 15%. So it's like a MIP or a capital guaranteed fund or whatever. Only 15% of your money is going to go into equity, and if equity fetches about 12%, so 15% of 12%, which is about 1.8%, is the part you will get from equity, and another if the fixed income part yields about 9%, 9% into 8.5, another 7. So NPS, that's why I put around 8 to 10%. NPS is going to yield around 9.5 to 10%. Right? And then gold. Gold is only a small part of anybody's savings, not a substantial part of savings. Even then, this is not a significant high return product. Plus, there is market volatility. So these are the options somebody has, and all of these are fairly fixed options. NPS is compulsory long term. If you make a compulsory savings in equity mutual funds for 20 years, let's say, the returns are likely to be much more than 12%, but I have assumed 12%, and that is post-tax, that is tax-free. So very clearly, if you have a time horizon of anything more than 10 years, a substantial part of your money has to be in a product that gives you by far the highest return. There is no comparison between that and anything else that we are looking at. Okay, avoid the wrong products. All of these advertisements, mainly from insurance companies, assault us. None of these things are good enough. There are specific products, retire insurance from IDBI, which tries to address the needs of people. At the front end are these advertisements and the messages. At the back, that is the inside of it, is all fairly simple to assure you that kind of so that you can be very, very sort of have an assured retired life and X amount of money. The companies necessarily will put you money in fixed income. So IDBI, Federal Life Insurance, will take your money and buy government bonds, which will give you 9%, which will now currently is yielding 8.7%. The reason is that they don't want to take chance with your money. It's a retirement money. It has to be safe. Exactly the way you're thinking by putting money in bank FD, exactly the way they're also going to do that. So if you go through them, and if you go directly and investing in a safe product like bank FD or any government bond, the returns are not likely to be any different. There's no additional skill these retirement product companies are bringing anything for you. How much is enough? It all depends. Some minimum self-assessment is needed, that do you really need money for basic, and what is comfortable, what is a luxurious lifestyle. All of this is a decision which is left to the individual, and based on that, our website has a sort of list of things, main items of expenses. You can put in over there and get a figure that you think is correct. You can change the figure, you can work out all of that. They're all free. Then based on that money that you need, you have to work backwards and set a target for savings. This also you can do in the calculators that we have created, and then naturally save towards it. All these calculators, these 5 calculators are there over here in this URL, registration is required, but it's a free registration. It's not a problem. And if you're already a Moneylife Foundation member, you can log in with the same ID and password. You can go straight in. It's not a problem. So all of these calculations you can do and play around with the figures and see where what kind of a situation you are in, and therefore take action. Having done that, you need to mix assets. It's not enough to put money in the same kind of products which will give you low yield, whether it's a bank FD or whether it's insurance or whether it's NPS or whatever. Now, as we mentioned multiple times, we need to invest. Anybody who's attended any of our programs would know that we do point very clear that if you want high returns, you have to take a little bit of higher risk. According to me, it's no risk over a long period of time, because what we perceive as a risk is a short-term risk. It's not really a long-term risk. And I'm really disappointed that not many people challenge me and force me to justify why I say that over a long period of time, products that appear risky are not so risky. If somebody asks, I can explain even more.
Want to ask?
Yeah, sure. I'll explain. Safety equals low returns. You can't have both. So you need to mix a bit of this and bit of that. The mix entirely depends on your age and how many dependents you have. To give concrete examples of different age groups, between this age 21 to 35, which is the time people sort of come out of the college, get a job, get married and so on, you have time on your hands to create great long-term wealth. Invest in the right combination of products. If unmarried and no dependents, and you can save more. Use the power of the compounding to the fullest. The example that I gave earlier, in the following manner: at least 25% of your income, which Mr. Kumar had done, but not in the right products. Fixed income should only be 15 to 30%. Equity mutual fund should be about 70%. If you do that, you will have a blended return which will be close to around 11% or so, sorry, 10% or so. If you invest 10% per month, by the time you retire, you have quite a corpus. Right. Age group 36 to 45, still time to invest, even though you have rising household expenses and some amount of borrowings. This is the asset allocation you should be having. 35, 65, least. Okay. I mean, frankly, if somebody says, I'm going to make 12% from this and 7% from this, I can't see why I would want to be lower end of it and not the higher end of it. Again, people can ask me, how are you sure? I can answer. If you have this asset allocation, and assuming you have a blended return of 10% on the total, this is the kind of money you could have, not 1 crore, 4.5 crore. 46 to 60, much lower household expenses, expensive dependents if anybody, loans possibly should be repaid, keep investing for retirement. Near 60s, if you have done the previous routine, systematic withdrawal of wealth, if invested in equity mutual funds, even at that stage, I have assumed a lot of people are not only medical sciences have improved, I assume a lot of people have now become health. So please plan to live till 85 and ensure that you stay invested for at least another 15-20 years. 15.
Why do you say lower household expenses in that age group?
I'm saying, children would have grown up. That's where the big expenses, as Sucheta would have mentioned.
Your own need to travel and see places.
That's fun part. I said household expenses. It's a very good point. Indeed, people don't count for all of these things. Traditionally nobody used to calculate all of these kind of expenses that we need. So, in fact, I'm glad you asked. There is a professor in the US who went around challenging the assumption that after retirement you would need 85% of your expenses. There is a rule of thumb among financial planners which says that if your expenses are, let's say, 1 lakh a month now, after retirement it will be 80, if you retire tomorrow it will become 85,000. So he wanted to find out what is the source of this 85,000, why not more, why not even less. So he did a survey among retired people, and instead of asking how much they have and therefore deciding on the spending, he asked them what is the kind of spending you would like to do, including traveling. And following that survey, he came up with the idea that it should be 115% of the time you retire, not less, 15% more, because you really want to enjoy life in a post-retirement. Somebody else, you wanted to ask something?
So when you say that age group 46 to 60 and you say fixed income 30 to 40%, means you are talking of FD?
Savings, yeah.
FDs. And
It's a mix of, see, if you're in a tax bracket, you should be putting money in tax-free bonds according to me, or bank FD. Anything that does not move, anything where principal does not move. In bond fund, the principal moves, so no bond fund. Your principal has to be absolutely safe. Even for a 5-year-old, I would say my idea is very, very simple. I want to take a chance here. I don't want to take a chance on equity, on fixed income part. So I would necessarily invest in any product which, if it is a tenured product, maybe something which is a 5-year or 7-year or 15 years, at the end of the term I must get back my principal completely, most certainly, and a guaranteed income on it. So if the principal has to be, absolutely protected, and the income part has to be absolutely guaranteed. That is the understanding I have of fixed income products. Okay, so if you buy a bond fund when the interest rate is low, let's say, you have decided that I am going to hold this for 5 years, and suppose the interest rate at that time is 6%. 5 years later, if the interest rate becomes 9%, your bond fund will lose 20-30% in value. So that's not the character of a fixed income in my view. I have taken a risk. I have no business taking risk in the fixed income part. That is fixed. That's the nature of it. So what are these products? Bank FD, most certainly fixed. If you buy a 15-year tax-free bond of Ennore Port, which is 100% owned by the government, there can be no default. 15 years later, you will get your money back. Meanwhile, you will get all the interest, which is tax-free. So that is the nature of the tax-free bond.
equity mutual funds are all safe, sir?
If you have money in,
I'll come to this entire area of equity mutual fund, and I'll separately discuss. Yes, please.
if you have money in liquid funds, isn't the capital more or less static?
Yeah, it's more or less safe.
So
If you are,
fixed income and fixed
that's the fixed income. I didn't say fixed deposits. I said fixed income. It's a category in which there are liquid funds, in which there is bank FD, in which there is tax-free bonds. These are the three main things that I talk about. So, what could he have done? Even assuming, even at 7% return, he would have to invest 30,000 to bridge the gap. That is double of what he would have saved if he had increased his yield a little bit, which is instead of only putting money in 7%, if he had changed that ratio, he would have got 1/3 more, even when he had only 15 years to invest. These are the issues you would face post-retirement. Where to put the corpus, what is the expected return from corpus, how long will the savings last, how much and when to withdraw, and when to withdraw from equity mutual funds, and whether you have any post-retirement support or not. Some of the options are immediate annuities. This is what is offered by insurance companies. You've retired with a retirement corpus, give it to the insurance company, they'll give you annuity. Annuities are taxed. Okay. One should lobby and get the tax removed on that, but they are taxed and the return is very poor. Senior citizens saving scheme can invest up to 15 lakhs. This is a bank scheme, pays 9% quarterly, maturity period of up to 5 years, can be extended for 3 years. MIP schemes sometimes are promoted from mutual funds that invest 85% in debt and 15% in equities. None of these are great options. Okay. So where to invest? By the time you have retired, very little significant thing can be done, because you're always obviously taking a chance on how long you're going to live, how long you can take a chance on this. But if you do assume, and that assumption is only in your hands and nobody else, and even if you don't know, post-retirement, you still have 25-30 years you have to live. Make a choice, 100% safety versus some risk and growth. If you are in good health, these are very, very important assumptions, and look at them closely and read them twice. If you are in good health, don't need this money for the next 5 years, or some part of the money for the next 5 years, and also you will leave this money to someone. If this is your condition, then the conventional idea that, oh, I am already 60 does not apply. Because you may be 60, but the life of your money, to the life of your money is added the life of the person you are leaving the money to. If you need the money, that's another matter. You don't need it in 5 years, you're in good health, and you will leave the money to somebody. What if the money you want to leave it is let's give a real life example, is your grandson or granddaughter. So your granddaughter, who may be 7, has 80 years on that money, right? You may be 60, but this money has an 80-year life ahead. So once you detach yourself from the life of the money, you will naturally choose a product which will grow really well over 80 years, and you will not look at the short-term situation. So if any of these assumptions hold, or any two of these assumptions hold, my appeal to you is look beyond a few years and look at investing some amount of money in equity mutual funds. Maybe above 75 you may start to think, okay, I don't want to take another 10 years chance, but you still have 15 years. In 15 years, let's look at it. Today is 2014. I hate to say this because nobody will believe me. Sensex is 25,000. 15 years ago, the Sensex was 6,000. Nothing would have given you this kind of a return. 4 times in 15 years. Okay? You choose any 15-year period, it would have beaten a bank FD. So at least 60 to 75, a 15-year period you give to an equity mutual fund, a well-chosen equity mutual fund. Unfortunately, choosing a good quality equity mutual fund is not that very difficult, because the good ones keep doing better and the bad ones keep doing worse and worse. Nobody in his right senses will choose a JM mutual fund over an HDFC or over a Birla Sun Life or whatever. So these good funds repeatedly come up in the top 10 under some form or the other in different periods. You don't have to choose the best, or you should not feel that I've only chosen the second best. All of their returns are going to be better than bank FD. That much is guaranteed. The reason it's guaranteed is nothing to do with the funds, is nothing to do with the stocks, is with an economic system that rewards people who work hard, and that rewards companies which have pricing power. It's nothing to do with you, me, BSE, NSE, SEBI, mutual fund, nothing. It is an economic system where a Nestle will keep growing year to year, where a Hindustan Lever will keep growing year to year because they are excellent companies. That is an economic system. No, you will have SIP is good for people who have regular income and younger. I mean, not younger, even at any time, if you have 5 to 7 years at least of regular income, you can consider an SIP. But at 60 you've retired, you have no income. So you have no savings, no regular savings, and therefore no more SIP to invest from. You have a corpus, you have 1 crore in FD. What are you going to do? So within, if you're never invested in equity mutual, let's look at the worst case scenario. You've retired with 1 crore in bank FD. and you earning 75,000 rupees a month. It's all taxed. What are you going to do? You must have a system, and it's not too difficult, by which over the next 18 months, 24 months, you systematically transfer. Let's look at the worst case scenario. Put 40% in equity, which means 40 lakhs have to be put into equity over the next 15 months or 18 months or 2 years, so that you don't take it and put it all in one go. You can do it at one go. From peak to peak also, the 6,000 of 2000, year 2000, the Sensex 6,000 was at the peak. So I am looking at from peak to peak also is 4 times. I am not saying time the market, buy when it's low, nothing. Even you give it enough of time. Even if you take 40 lakhs, you retired in 2000, year 2000, you've taken 40 lakhs, put it in Sensex, it went down by 2001, September, when there was attack on America. At that time it was really low, and then it starts rising. 2008, it went back to 23,000, it fell to 9,000, and it's back to 25,000. So you've given it a 15-year period and lots of highs and lows later. The market was overvalued at certain time, undervalued at certain time, and now it's fairly valued. So between, it's not even peak, the peak would probably be 30,000 or 32,000. So between peak and peak, if you compare, from 6,000 the Sensex would have gone almost 5 times in 15 years. So if you give it enough of time, if you think that I'll need this money in 2 years, obviously you have no business investing so much of money in equity. If you think you're going to invest for 5 years, more than 5 years is what you should be thinking of, which is why I said that you retired with 1 crore of rupees, you decide what you are comfortable with. You said, I don't need 20 lakhs of this. Put that 20 lakhs for 15 years. You won't regret, is what my point is. So all those calculations, how much you would need, at what rate it will grow, how much of interest income that you need to support that, all those you can do in our calculators. Any other question? You wanted to ask something? So I'd suggest create a 2-part. I've already mentioned all this. Fixed income, use the income from this growth, use this to beat inflation, withdraw if needed, time your withdrawal from the growth part. Expected returns, how much should you expect? If from any good equity mutual fund, you should expect at least 12% tax free. It will probably be more. Bank FD 8.5%, but it's taxed. Corporate FD, if you are investing in 10%, it's taxed. Corporate bonds 10 to 11%. Within fixed income, I've already mentioned this, put 70% in bank FD, some amount in corporate FD. If you want to take a little bit of risk, corporate bonds, there are some of these bonds which give higher yields. Liquid fund, certainly somebody pointed out, is better than savings account. If this was done at retirement with a 1.66 corpus, I give you an example of how this could be done. This is the division that one would do, and that remaining 1 crore, if you are invested in a bank FD earning 8.5%, this would grow over 20 years to around 5.11 crore. If in any other option which is earning 2% more from the bank FD, another 2.2 crore extra, okay, or 44% more over this base level. All this of course assumes that you are doing everything by yourself and you have no post-retirement support. It is a wrong assumption. Obviously everybody has to sort of blend all this within their own personal experiences. Indian children do support their parents, but anyone looking at independence plus trouble-free retirement will have to save more and take more risk. There is just no getting away from this. Now last piece, reverse mortgage. This only if you are desperate, because this is not a product that you would normally want. The reason is that this is not a popular product. As Moneylife, we avoid anything that is not tried, tested, experiences are well recounted, and which does not have a proper grievance redress system, which means the regulatory system is not in place and people who have a problem already have a track record of having the problem addressed. Reverse mortgage is a new product. It's expensive, okay, and only central bank and a life insurance company, Bank of India and Daiichi Life Insurance, they have come together to offer this particular product. All other banks are offering an older version of the product, and that older version hardly gives you any money. It's not even worth discussing. If you have a crore of property, you probably get 5,000 rupees a month. It's that kind of a thing. The idea is very simple. Longevity is increasing. 10 years from now, as I mentioned, many people could be asset rich and cash poor. Reverse mortgage enables you to raise the cash in the house property without selling the house. How it works? As I said, there is an insurance company in this whole game. Why do you need a life insurance company? Because of this unknown factor that we all have to calculate while doing calculation of retirement, which is how long are you going to live. It's only a life insurance company which is skilled, which has an understanding of assessing life insurance, and they have mortality tables. They have, some companies have 100 years experience of assessing how long you're going to live, and that is on that basis that they give you an annuity. So your house has actually been converted into an annuity product. What you have in a physical asset has gone to a bank, because a bank has a cash. The bank has bought the annuity, given that money to life insurance company, and life insurance company is giving you the annuity. This is the way a physical asset has been converted into a financial asset, which is an annuity, and you are getting annuity payments. Now, there are two forms of this. One is if you want your asset back, or if you want your legal heirs to have the asset back. And the other one is that, no, I don't want the money, give me more money now. After I die, take the property, do what you want to. So, obviously in the second case is where you get more money. Option 1, no return of purchase price, that is, you or your legal heir do not get the property back unless they pay the money, and they pay whatever money the bank has given and release the property. This where the legal heirs get the money back. Annuity payment ceases and the purchase price is returned. To give you who is this good for? Suitable for couples. On the death of the primary borrower, the co-borrower automatically starts getting the annuity. Suitable for singles, because you don't have anybody, you don't want to leave it to anybody. I don't know how many people are in that situation. Even if you you may want to give it to somebody, I don't know. So the sum, look at this, % per annum of principal is yearly cost, plus there are upfront costs and charges. According to me, it's just too high, especially when the market is small. I wish some banks came in and increased the size of the market. If these charges go down to around 5.5% or so, then financial assets starts being viable. To give you some calculations, if the property value is 50 lakhs, see, LTV is loan to value. This is a bank's way of calculating how much they're going to give you. They give you 60% in option 1, where the property doesn't come back to you or the legal heir. You're getting much more. Where you want the property back, you're going to get little less. This is a little old figure, but this is roughly what you would get depending on the 75%. Nobody will give. Banks normally stay between 60 and 65%. So if you have a crore of worth of property, you get 34,000 rupees a month, and you have to give up your property. The longer you live, the better it is for you.
So this is 1 crore of property.
50 lakhs I started. You could do 1 crore, almost double.
So the sum will keep increasing every year. Is that?
Some will not keep increasing every year unless there is no scope for a revaluation of the property, unless you close it, or unless they allow you to revalue and say, now it is 1.5 crore, why did you give me more? So it's a matter of negotiation.
It's a fixed money amount that you get per month and every year. But what is the value of that money around?
That's why I said that. That's why I said that in this situation, where especially most people will be in this situation, either it will go to the legal heir or to somebody. You get, in fact, the older version, where no insurance was there, and this was not an annuity, and it was a straight risk a bank was taking. This was 5,000 rupees. So,
Sir, sorry to interrupt, but I feel one thing, that if you do not have the money, and if your house is there which you cannot sell and you can't be on the roads, So I think that kind of a situation is good for a person who is incapable of earning any kind of money, to get this monthly income.
How much is that money worth, taking into account inflation?
I would still say that it might be better to sell and invest. You get more. Because under any financial intermediation, always remember that there are people in the middle who are taking away a cut. Okay, except in case of bank FD, where you don't pay anybody, the bank pays you. But even in mutual fund, even a good quality mutual fund takes 2.5%. Now they want to increase the expenses. They are saying the expenses have gone up, so they want to increase it 2.5%, 2.7%. Some are little lower, 1.85, but 2% every year you're paying the fund to. Yeah. So I would say it's better to sell and move to a smaller place, or have that cash, do what you want. As I mentioned before I started this segment, that this is for those who are really desperate, and if you are desperate, you cannot make a choice. I like this place, I want to stay. Thank you.